Today, the A's played their final game in Oakland, and naturally it has me reflecting on the relocation era for the Sacramento Kings. Well, growing up a diehard fan of both the A's and the Kings, I have some thoughts to share right here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time. Time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all offseason long. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News. And today's Locked On Kings episode is going to be very, very different from how the podcast normally is. Now, the next 30 minutes or so are not going to be dominated by relocation talk and the A's and the Kings and things of that nature, because we got a season to prepare for, right? Media day for the Sacramento Kings is coming up on Monday. So the season is getting ready to truly get going. And I have another segment for you after this first segment where we'll talk about curiosities going into media day, questions that maybe you have that you would like, if you had the opportunity to ask, that you would ask, or just things that you're curious about with this team going into the early days of the Kings season and training camp. So there will be normal, regular Locked On Kings programming in this episode. If you need to skip this first segment to pick up with that, I totally understand. I encourage you not to, though, because I have some thoughts that I think are important to share. Now, I haven't written anything down, truth be told. Like, I usually have a rundown in front of me with kind of an idea of where I want to go. The first segment just says thoughts on the A's leaving Oakland and reflecting on the Sacramento Kings relocation saga. Those of you who have listened to Locked On Kings for a while, who have followed my career for a while, know how connected I am with the Oakland A's. Grew up diehard fan of the A's, right? My grandma every single summer would save up money to take me to the Coliseum for at least one A's game a year as a kid. So I fell in love with baseball at the Coliseum. That place is very, very special to me. And even though the A's are coming to Sacramento to play for at least the next 3 years or so, we think, and even though that is a tremendous opportunity for this city to prove that they are capable of being a multi-major league sports town, it still does not sit well with me. In fact, it disgusts me. It breaks my heart that the A's are leaving Oakland, that the days of A's baseball in the Coliseum are done, or at least barring some kind of miracle or some kind of change, or Las Vegas falling apart, which is very, very possible. John Fisher screwing everything up again, which has been kind of his reputation throughout his time as a owner, not just the MLB, but professional sports in general. If you don't know, he also owns the San Jose Earthquakes, and he's run that MLS franchise into the freaking ground. They're the worst team in the MLS. No surprise there. I've shared my thoughts, my frustrations, my anger about this before on Locked On Kings, and I don't want to spend too much time on it. What I more want to focus on is what happened at the Coliseum today, because it reminds me of Arco Arena, or I guess it was Sleep Train Arena at the time. It may have even been Power Balance Pavilion. I don't remember, but we all know it and love it as Arco Arena in Sacramento. The final game before what we thought was going to be the Kings relocation to Seattle. And you had fans staying after the final buzzer. The place was sold out. Same thing with the Coliseum today. Place is sold out. Fans coming to either celebrate one last game, if that truly is the case, but also coming to voice their frustrations, to show the world that they're still here and they still love their team, and their team is leaving, and it's not because of them. It's not because of the fans, right? the game ends and the crowd sticks around, right? You have the emotional sign-off of television by Grant Napier and Jerry Reynolds at the time. You have fans in the crowd with the Here We Stay movement and everything, and how emotional they were. Plenty of tears in that building, trust me. Then you had Tyreek Evans and Francisco Garcia and Jason Thompson and different Kings players come out of the tunnel after going back into the locker room, coming back out and grabbing a microphone and addressing the crowd there, saying, we don't know what's going to happen, but Sacramento will always be home. We appreciate you so much. The difference between that night in Sacramento and what happened today in Oakland is that in Sacramento, we had hope. And that hope turned into the team ultimately staying here. That hope turned into justice. Now, Sacramento also had something that Oakland does not have, and that's the backing of a commissioner who actually has a spine as well as a brain. Rob Manfred is a absolute joke of a commissioner of Major League Baseball. I can guarantee you, if not every single one of MLB owners, the vast majority of them are completely embarrassed by not just how poorly this entire Oakland exit has gone down, but because of the blatant incompetence of John Fisher, who clearly has zero business savvy at all, has very little understanding of how business, let alone running a professional sports organization, works, because he's run this team and this organization into the freaking ground. And now maybe they are forced to save face, to come together to try and get this organization to Las Vegas so that the MLB can at least either financially get something out of it, well, definitely financially get something out of it, but also can just end the disaster that is John Fisher's time here in Oakland. Regardless, Sacramento had David Stern. And having a commissioner plus a fan base and the grassroots efforts, and of course Mayor Kevin Johnson at the time, all of that led to the Golden One Center being built, Vivek Ranadive coming in and purchasing the team, and the Sacramento Kings staying here. I bring that up because when looking at the Oakland A's, I say there's no hope because the decision's been made, right? The only hope that A's fans in Oakland have is for John Fisher to finally do what he should have done all along and sell the team. But the man is so stubborn and driven by greed and spite that he refuses to do that. So maybe there is hope in Las Vegas completely falling apart and the MLB being so embarrassed by everything and so done with everything that they force the man to sell. I have no idea if that's a possibility too. But we saw 47,000 fans fill the Oakland Coliseum to again show the world and tell the world, this is not our fault. We are the ones being abandoned, and the people who aren't there were the ones actually making the decisions. Look at the players. The A's won today. They won via a Mason Miller close. They won by 1 run. And at the A's make the last play, and there's no celebration, right? Celebration by Kool and the Gang comes on the speakers like after every single Oakland A's game, but the players are somber because they know it's over. You have Mark Kotze, former Oakland A, who had one of the most difficult jobs ever as a manager, and this is his first ever job as a manager. And he comes out and has to manage a god-awful team with absolutely no payroll in the midst of the most unstable organizational turmoil that you will find, and he handles it with absolute class, and he takes the microphone and addresses the 47,000 people that are there. Nobody is happy. Nobody is okay with this. This does not sit well to anybody. Everybody is upset, is sad, is frustrated, knows this is wrong, except for the people who are responsible for the health and success of the organization. It is completely backwards. The powerful sometimes do not deserve to be in power. We're very fortunate that the powers of the NBA and the powers of Vivek Ranadive and Mayor Kevin Johnson and Sacramento politicians and whatever the case, like, we're very fortunate that Sacramento, those powers came together to recognize a wrong and to right it. Baseball's powers have come together to look at something that is blatantly, obviously foul, but to continue to push it through and throw all moral compasses into the garbage in order to make this happen. I get, if you're a Kings fan listening to this here and you're from Sacramento and you're excited because the A's are coming to Sacramento, I don't have any bad words to say to you. I'm not mad at you. I don't hate you. I don't blame you. I hope you understand what Oakland is going through. The only thing that makes me angry, in addition to just seeing John Fisher's face and hearing his words and reading his ridiculously stupid goodbye letter that he wrote to Oakland, like the coward that he is, and not actually coming out and speaking to anybody, but writing this letter with false, empty words. The only people that I'm mad at are the people that jump on the low-hanging fruit bandwagon gripes and issues of Oakland or Oakland politics. And look, I get their problems. Of course, Sacramento had plenty of political problems and plenty of issues at the time when the Golden One Center was being built and that relocation saga was going on too. Not as bad as Oakland, I will say. Oakland certainly has to look in the mirror too when it comes to losing all three of their professional sports franchises in the last less than a decade. But I'm mad at the people who just regurgitate and don't regurgitate the low-hanging fruit and don't recognize who's really to blame here. And unfortunately, with Sacramento trying to take advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that's been made available to them, they are helping that man. They are helping the wrong party. I do not hate Vivek Ranadive. I strongly disagree with his involvement. But again, from a business standpoint, from a Sacramento standpoint, I understand it. I understand why. If you take nothing else out of this segment, understand that while what happened in Sacramento and what happened in Oakland is not the same thing, there are significant key differences. The way you felt as a Kings fan when you thought your team was going is a million times easier than what A's fans in Oakland are going through, knowing today was the last time that they'll see the A's play at the Coliseum. So just be understanding and appreciative of that. And if you know any A's fans, reach out to them, check on them, make sure they're okay, and save your jokes of, what do you mean A's fans? There's only 4,000 of them that go to a game every single year. Understand, do a little research, right? Understand the product that the A's have been putting out there and the fact that well beyond this relocation era has John Fisher's ownership and the Oakland A's operated like a small market team that refuses to have a big payroll and trades and sells players away as soon as they become a little bit expensive or have a little bit of talent, right? Understand that this has been going a lot longer than this relocation era in Oakland. So instead of being a smart you-know-what about it, and instead of celebrating the team breaking the hearts of a fan base to come here to Sacramento to play in a minor league ballpark for a couple of years, just be understanding of what's going on. And remember how you felt when you thought your Sacramento Kings were leaving you. And how grateful all of us are still to this day that we can look forward to Media Day on Monday and another season of Sacramento Kings basketball. Arguably one of the most exciting seasons of Kings basketball since like 2002 or 2003 or 2004. We have that still. So be thankful for that and understand what these people are going through. That's all I ask. All right, we will turn our attention to actual Sacramento Kings basketball with Media Day coming up on Monday. That's coming up for you here in just a second. Before that, though, I'm excited to tell you about a sponsor here of Locked On Kings that is back. Oh, yeah, it's Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you watch the winnings roll in. For example, with football going on right now, right? You could play Prize Picks like one Caleb Williams passing yard gets you one win on Prize Picks every week in September. So there's a free win for you via Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears right there. Again, 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. 4 weeks of free wins. Don't miss that deal on PrizePicks because it's gone when September ends. PrizePicks, you can play with all sports. You can play it with the MLB as well. You can play multiple sports at the same time. If there's a football Sunday where there's also some MLB action going on, or when we have some overlap between the NBA and NFL later on, hey, have some fun with some more or less on Domantas Sabonis rebounds and De'Aaron Fox points, as well as Brock Purdy touchdown passes, right? There's so many fun and unique ways to play on PrizePicks, and ultimately you can make a lot of money and have a lot of fun doing it. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNBA or PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Locked On Kings is also brought to you by Game Time, whether you're looking to buy tickets to when the A's play here in Sacramento, or of course the Kings inside the Golden One Center, maybe the San Francisco 49ers in action at Levi Stadium, or whatever event, sporting event, major concert, smaller concert, theatrical production, comedy club, it does not matter. Game Time has your tickets for you, and they have the best deals that you're ever going to find. They have this feature called Game Time Picks, which removes all the fluff, all the stress, and all the unnecessary time out of purchasing tickets. Let's say, for example, you want to go to a Kings game. It's a Saturday night game against the Miami Heat, right? It's like, okay, I know I want to go to this game. I want a good deal, and I want good seats, but I don't want to sift through all the other crap. Because look, maybe this game has a lot of tickets for sale on this particular night. Game Time Picks will filter out all of that fluff to show you the best deals in different sections. So not just, oh, here are the best deals courtside, or here are the best deals in the first couple of rows that are really, really expensive. No, here's a great deal if you want to sit up there. Here's a great deal that's maybe upper lower bowl, like the top of the lower bowl, or here's some great deals in the upper bowl, right? They'll show you a bunch of different ones so you can compare, contrast, and make the best decision for you. That's one of the just amazing features that Game Time has, including their seat views that are better than you'll find anywhere else. Panoramic views, you know exactly what you are going to see from your seat. And they also have the lowest price guarantee. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find a lower price in the same seat. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. This Monday, the Sacramento Kings practice facility will turn into school picture day. Media Day is a whirlwind to attend as a media member. There are a ton of different stations throughout this practice facility, including different photo booths for where the NBA takes their pictures. So when you see like the starting lineups on the TV, or you see online, that's where they get their pictures taken. They get team pictures over there. They have different stations for if you go to a Kings game, right, and you go and you see those entertainment packages of the bongo cams, right, where Keon Ellis is playing the bongos for you, or you see De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis and all of them guessing the lyrics to a song or whatever. All of that is recorded on Media Day. All of the television promos and stuff like that. There's a section in there for where the players will speak to all of us television media, which is what you see and hear here on Locked On Kings every single year for Media Day. Plus, they dress up the whole court of the Golden One Center too. That's where they get those really cool action, like neon shots or shots with fire in the background, or whatever the case may be. Media Day is a circus, but it's so much fun, and it really helps you build that excitement of, hey, Kings basketball is back. It's also really our first true, like, in-season kind of opportunity to talk to these players and talk to these coaches and talk to GM Monty McNair and start talking the season, right? Because like we've spoken with De'Aaron Fox in his off-season training camp, or excuse me, basketball camp. Same thing with Domantas Sabonis, his off-season basketball camp. Speaking of Domas, I have some really exciting news about a interview with Domantas Sabonis that I'm going to be doing. I'll share that with you at the end of the show. But this is the first time that we get them in a Kings setting. They're wearing their jerseys. The season is getting going. And we can really start to ask them questions about what this team's going to look like. Optimism on Media Day is always tenfold for every team. Every team thinks they're minimum going to make the playoffs. Most teams say they're going to win a championship on Media Day. That's just the optimism. It's a fresh start. Everyone is 0-0 and ready to tackle the season. The Kings should have even more optimism this season than they've had in a long time. Yes, even going back to coming into last season after making the playoffs for the first time, right? Optimism should be very, very high. But there are also things that we should be curious about. Questions. Like, if you had the opportunity to join me, hey, you're my partner for the day at ABC 10. You're joining me and you're coming to Media Day. You can be involved in these scrums. You can ask these players and these coaches and stuff questions. What questions would you ask? Share them with me at MattGeorgeSack on Twitter. You can email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com. Hey, post your questions in the comment section down below. Now, I'm not asking you to do your job for me because many of these questions or some of these questions might not be asked. Some of them might be silly, of course. But hey, maybe there's something in there that you really would like to know that if I have the opportunity to ask that and find some of that stuff out for you, I will absolutely take that opportunity to do so on Media Day. But it got me thinking about like things I'm curious about that I may or may not have the opportunity to ask these players or coaches going into training camp and at Media Day, but things that I'm curious about with this team at this point in time. We don't necessarily need answers to a lot of things, right? We don't need to know who's going to be the starting two guard on Monday's Media Day. We don't need to know how DeMar DeRozan is going to fit in with the Kings, but things that we're curious about. Of course, those are two major obvious things that come to mind, but there's other things to be curious about. Like, for example, is repeating the defense that you ended last season with, right? That's the final third of the year. You played really, really good defense, top half of the league defense. Is just repeating that and showing that you can carry that into a full 82-game season, is that the expectation, or is there a belief that with this roster, which is still a very offensively driven roster, that defense can take another step forward? Like, what's the mindset? What's Mike Brown thinking when he looks at this team and looks at this roster and the addition of DeMar DeRozan, the loss of Davion Mitchell, and the loss of Harrison Barnes? Does he look at this roster and go, I still think defensively we can do better than we did at the end of last season? Because if you were to tell me, based off of how good I expect the offense to be, if you were to tell me that the Kings offense can get back to close to what it was or back to being one of the best in the league, and the Kings defensively could be for basically an entire season what they were the final third of last season, I would tell you that's pretty dang good, and it's hard to ask for more or expect more, at least right now, until we get more context. I would be okay with that. But maybe Mike Brown feels that defensively this team can take another step forward beyond that. Maybe it's with their perimeter defense and how frequent the Kings allowed high shooting percentages from beyond the three-point line. So that would be something that I'm curious to kind of get an idea of, or at least get an understanding of what Mike Brown thinks about where this defense can still go going into training camp. Locked On Kings is also brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And if you're looking for a reason to play FanDuel this NFL season, or of course the NBA season coming up, how about this? How about this offer to get you in and to get you started? When you get a hunch in the middle of a game, let's say a football game, right? You get a hunch, oh, I think this team's going to win. I think they're going to pull it out. Or I think this quarterback's going to throw for this many yards, or running back's going to have this many touchdowns. Whatever it is, you get a hunch. You want to put some money on that hunch and make some money off of that. FanDuel is the place to go. And there's so many ways. You can view live play-by-play, and you can place bets in the same area while you are following and watching the games. FanDuel will get you started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. All you have to do is put $5 of your own money on the line. Just $5 on whatever. And you don't even have to win, right? Put $5 on something. Hopefully you win that, so you're already in the green. And then here's $200 in bonus bets on top of that. Now you can really start to cook, really start to use that high football or basketball or sports IQ that you have to make yourself some money and have fun doing it. That is why FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook, and you can get started on FanDuel.com. What about the Kings timeline? How accelerated is the Kings timeline, right? Like, this is something I'm curious about. You got 3 years of DeMar DeRozan. He's only going to get older every single year. Like we talked about, though, age is just a number. There's no reason to believe DeMar, because of age, is going to slow down. But you have DeMar for the next 3 years, at least under contract, right? During that time, you're going to need to pay Keegan Murray. You're going to need to pay De'Aaron Fox. You're already paying a lot of money to Domantas Sabonis. You just re-signed Malik Monk, right? You are a team that is going to be in the luxury tax and in that first apron territory, right? So you're on a timeline. You need to have success for that payroll to be worth it. So you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself, right? Because you got to take it one step at a time, sure. But this might be a question for like Kings general manager Monte McNair. You can't just have a 1 year at a time plan if you're Monte McNair, right? Maybe you have an idea of where you want to go and projecting what could work, and you have contingency plans of, hey, if this doesn't work, we go in this direction. If this doesn't work, we move this guy. If this works, then we stick with this. Like, you can have plans in place, but without giving specific details, because Monte McNair and the Kings never will, how much are they paying attention to that timeline, right? Because if the Kings make the playoffs this season and even win a playoff series, let's say they make the playoffs, win a playoff series, and are eliminated, we feel very good at where the Sacramento Kings are at. But then we ask the question of, okay, now how do they get from B to C? A to B was getting to the playoffs. Now how do they get, A to B was getting to the playoffs and winning a playoff series. Now, how do you get from B to C, which is going from one playoff series to pushing for a Western Conference Finals appearance? Then you get from C to D, which is winning an NBA championship, right? If it was that easy and everybody could project how to do it, everybody would do it. But I know Monte McNair and the Kings have some kind of idea in place of what this timeline looks like over the next couple of years, and I'd be very curious to get an understanding of what they feel that timeline is. Another thing I'm curious about, how tight are Mike Brown's rotations going into this season? Again, the biggest question is, what are you doing with the starting two-guard spot? And that will determine what the rest of this rotation looks like, of course. You have your 4 starters that are set for sure. The 5th one is between Keon and probably just Kevin, but I'm going to throw Malik Monk into there anyway because I believe Malik Monk deserves to start. But how deep are these rotations going to be? Right? In theory, looking at this roster, the Kings have depth, but is Mike going to go beyond a 9-man rotation? Is Mike going to play 10 guys a night? I don't think so. And if so, if he does stick with an 8 or 9-man rotation, how heavy are the minutes and distribution of those minutes on the top guys, right? Do you have a super top-heavy rotation? Is De'Aaron Fox expected to play 37, 38 minutes a night all season long? Same thing with Domantas Sabonis. Will Malik Monk play more than the 26 minutes per night that he played last season? And the answer should absolutely 100% be yes. He should be and will be playing more than that, right? How Mike Brown's rotations, how that starts to work out, we will not get direct answers to that if we were to ask him that on media day. That's going to be a wait and see for a little bit of preseason and probably the first couple of weeks of the regular season to kind of get an idea of what he's thinking rotations-wise. But I'm very curious to see how deep this rotation is for Mike Brown and who is at the end of that rotation, right? The Alex Lenz, the Trey Lyles, maybe even the Kevin Huerter, right? Who is at the end of that rotation? And even Jordan McLaughlin, what does that look like? Another one, like how much is home court success and emphasis for this team? I've talked about this a lot on Locked On Kings. Like, I think this Kings team recognizing the necessity to protect home floor is a really big deal, especially if they want to be a 50-win team. And finally, what is the biggest, most noticeable area of growth that the Kings want to accomplish this training camp, right? From the start of training camp, day 1, to the final day of training camp, going into the actual regular season, what area do the Kings want to see the biggest area of growth from the start of training camp, but also given the context of last season? An example, by the way, let's say the Kings go through preseason and go through training camp, and as a team, they're shooting really, really well from the free throw line. Awesome. That's a huge area of growth considering they were rock bottom, one of the worst in the NBA last season at the free throw line. Or the offense getting back to what it was, right? Maybe you start training camp day 1, you're implementing DeMar DeRozan and the rest of these new faces, and the Kings through the preseason and through training camp are back to this high-powered, fast-paced offense, one of the highest offensive ratings in the league, and they look like the way the Kings played offense 2 seasons ago, right? Maybe that's an area of clear, identifiable growth that the Kings want to be paying attention to. The correct answer is the Kings want to see growth in multiple areas, if not all areas, of course. But if there's one in particular that the Kings could choose and say, this is what we want to have ironed out, set in stone, clear idea of come the start of the season, what would be at the top of that list for Mike Brown and the Kings players? So those are some things that I'm curious about heading into media day and the opportunity to talk to these players and coaches for the first time. Again, any curiosities or questions that you might have, share them with me at MattGeorgeSack on Twitter. Email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com, or leave your thoughts in the YouTube comment section down below. So a couple more quick things before we wrap up. First, the Kings officially announced today that they've signed Skal Labissière. Now, this is something that we've known for a while. It just became official. The official press release came out today. What's interesting is that most of the details of this deal have not been disclosed, but this is a legitimate Sacramento Kings contract. Now, that does not mean, as my phone goes off, that does not mean that that Skal Labissière is guaranteed to make the roster. And that does not mean that the Kings might not choose to have Skal continue in the G League, where he was with the Stockton Kings last year. And by the way, Skal was a beast with the Stockton Kings last year. He averaged 16.8 points, shot 65% from the field, did shoot only 21% from three-point range, which is rough. 7.9 rebounds, 2 assists, and 1.7 blocks in 29 minutes per game in 26 games, all of them starts for the Stockton Kings last season. So he put up really, really good numbers in the G League. That's a good sign of an NBA caliber players when they're putting up big numbers like that in the G League. This makes sense in terms of forward/center depth. Skal Labissière is 6'10", 235 pounds, so he's not the biggest guy on the planet. He is long. He's got the good wingspan, some good athleticism as well, which leads to a lot of the shot blocking. So in theory, there is a need for what Skal Labissière can provide with the Sacramento Kings. If I'm being honest with you, I think he has a pretty big uphill battle. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he makes it to training camp and has a decent training camp or just does his work. And then when it comes to the Kings actually forming their full final roster, he just does not make the cut. That wouldn't surprise me. I'm not rooting for that to happen at all. If he makes the roster, then there's a reason why he makes it, and he's deserving to be there. He's earned this opportunity based off of how he's played as part of the Stockton Kings and loosely in the Kings organization for the last year and some change. So good for him. I'm excited to see what Skal Labissière can do and what he looks like in training camp and in preseason, assuming he gets some opportunity and gets some run there. Finally, before Media Day on Monday, tomorrow, I'll be heading out to the Golden One Center for an opportunity to sit down with Domantas Sabonis. If you did not know and you were not aware, the Netflix's Starting 5 documentary, which follows 5 different NBA players and their life and journey through the NBA last season. Domantas Sabonis is one of those 5 players. 5 huge names, by the way. LeBron James, Anthony Edwards, Jason Tatum, and Jimmy Butler, and Domantas Sabonis, right? So 5 huge names. Sabonis, I'm very excited for this show. Very excited to see how Sabonis is portrayed and what the reaction is from just the national NBA audience and just audience period. Netflix documentary lovers who maybe dip their feet a little bit into the NBA because of this and how much they enjoy and appreciate who Domantas Sabonis is as a player and as a person. So this documentary is coming out. Domantas Sabonis is doing media about it, and I get to sit down and have a conversation with Sabonis about it. Now, just so you understand, this conversation is going to be focused on the Netflix documentary and the things he went through shooting it and last season and stuff like that. There's going to be plenty of time to talk to Domas about this upcoming season come media day time. So I'm just prefacing that by example, but I will have that interview on Locked On Kings tomorrow, assuming everything goes just fine with it. It'll also be available for you on ABC 10, my employer here in Sacramento. But I'm very much looking forward to that. So please tune in to hear about more of this Starting 5 Netflix documentary with Domantas Sabonis. I'm looking forward to having him here on Locked On Kings for the first time. So that'll be pretty cool. Appreciate your support as always. Appreciate all of you who, whether you're an Oakland A's fan or not, and you listen to that first segment, even if you didn't necessarily like all the things that I had to say, or you're feel another however way you feel. I appreciate you regardless for your support here of the Locked On Kings podcast. Understand for me, for A's fans, this is a very emotional time. So just keep that in mind. Give an A's fan a hug if you see one and you know one, and let them know you appreciate them, even if you're excited about the A's playing here in Sacramento. So I appreciate you, as always, listening to Locked On Kings. Stay tuned for my conversation with Domantas Sabonis tomorrow. I'll have a huge podcast on Monday. I might even do a 2-parter, Monday and Tuesday, with just all the sound and all the great interviews and things that we get on Kings Media Day. So pay attention and keep an eye out for that. Training camp is coming, baby. Kings season is right around the corner, and all season long, the place that you need to be for all of your Sacramento Kings coverage is right here on the Locked On Kings podcast. Until next time, my name is Matt George. You've been listening to Locked On Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.